This video is a patron's pick. You can head on over to Patreon and support at any tier to vote in the next one.
Dragon Ball, horror, kaiju, and more. Steven's Toy Reviews.
Hey collectors, it's going to be Steven here, and today we have a review of the Bandai Orochi, from Orochi, the 8-headed dragon. We're going to go with those names. I know there are plenty others for what this kaiju goes by and for what the movie goes by, but just to keep things simple, that's what we're going to use. Now, this piece here is rather interesting. When you go to conventions and you speak to dealers or you take a look online, you may see that it seems that this piece is not well supplied and goes for a pretty penny. We're going to go ahead and talk a bit about that more at the end, but with that being said, this is seen as a grail piece for many, or at least a centerpiece in the collection, and with good reason. This kaiju is not really well known by many in the fandom, despite the fact that it is large and definitely commands a shelf presence. With a pretty price tag, even though we're going to somewhat debunk that closer to the end, and some relatively scarce availability, is this going to be a figure that's going to be worth hunting down, especially if you do happen to see it way up on the top shelf when you go to the conventions this summer? Or is this going to be one maybe you should just skip out on? Let me tell you folks, I had this one shipped from Japan, and I paid not a whole lot. Let's take a look to see whether or not it's going to be worth adding into your collection. Alright, so I'm going to say this first and foremost, this is one big sumbitch. This is probably one of the biggest figures I've had up on the review table. Arguably, dimension-wise, this has a bigger shelf footprint than the NECA 24-inch head-to-tail Godzilla 2014. Now, there's no real particular dimension except for lengthwise that is going to be 24 inches. I think actually this is even, as you're going to see, but nevertheless, this is huge. So I can't do a 360 spin view no matter what way I try. I can't curl the tail. That is one of the reasons why it's the biggest. So we're just going to do a comprehensive gallery of this thing, which we've already started. And I have to say, wow, the sculpted detail on this thing is fantastic. Though Bandai did cut some corners when it comes to the necks and the heads, but that is somewhat accurate to the source material. Why? Well, I mean, it's a dragon, right? So, well, it's not really a dragon. If you want to fight me in the comments, you know, the dragon, 2 front legs, 2 back legs, and then we have the wings. So that's technically a dragon. But nevertheless, it's a dragon. And similar to King Ghidorah, we do have the multiple necks and the heads, and they repeat. The only difference is going to be it's not the middle, but it's going to be the centermost head, which is unique. Specifically in the sculpt and the paint apps, you can see that the horn is a bit more prominent, as well as the spikes that are going to be on the top of the head. You can tell also that it has different paint apps, which is the reason why I took more pictures of it. So this way we can really differentiate how that looks. Otherwise, the rest of the heads on Orochi are pretty much the same. There's really going to be no difference. There's no teeth paint whatsoever on any of the heads, which was rather interesting, I feel. And to sort of double down on it, the gold paint that is used for Orochi is used on the horns and on the throats, going all the way down to the just above the chest area of Orochi, because we're going to talk about that a bit more in a second. If you go back to the suit or the source material, the puppet, if you will, whatever the case may be, it's more so a tan coloration instead of the gold. So I'm gonna ding points for accuracy there, but let's go back to price closer to the end. When we get to the stomach area that blends into the chest of Orochi, we do have a metallic coloration for paint there that's going to be somewhere in a lighter reddish, somewhat pink. That looks fantastic. And then we do have the legs of Orochi at the front with those nice claws. And then if we look at the source material, we do have some coloration on the necks, the back side of Orochi, but it's not really present here. We do have some spikes going from the top of the head all the way down. But aside from a couple of the heads on the back of it, where we do have just a touch of gold spray, there's no paint apps whatsoever. And this is pretty much where the nice stuff of Orochi sort of ends, and we get a taste of modern day Bandai. What's going on? So basically, it's all business in the front, well, and nothing in the back, not even a party. So the paint apps, which, okay, arguably speaking, if we do take a look at the source material, there is just minor things going on, but the sculpt is nice when it comes to the source material. Here, they did honor the sculpt, but there's no shading, there's no dry brushing whatsoever, and the next time we come in contact with the paint is going to be at the tail tip, where we do have the gold. So there's no real sense of detail, but thankfully, the detail that they do have for the sculpt really sticks out because Orochi is very spiky, very pointy, so that's good. So while the detail is there and you're able to see it, there's nothing that really accentuates the detail, if that makes any sense. Now, as we wrap up the sculpt and paint section, the only other thing to really say, and I don't really hold it against figures that are older, but I do want to bring it up here just because of availability and price, is going to be this figure really didn't have any reissues that I am aware of, or any repaints that came out later. And because of the age of this figure, I don't know specifically the year, but it is quite old. Chances are you're going to have one with paint scratches and scuffs and so forth, so keep that in mind when you make your purchase. Now, when it comes to articulation, again, this is going to be a vinyl figure, so this is not intended to have articulation. It's not an SH Monster Arts, but by a technicality, it's going to have quite a few points of articulation, and by my book, if you have 15 points or more, you qualify as an action figure. But not really in this case. All of the bases of the neck swivel around, though do keep in mind that you're going to collide into the other necks, okay? And then the heads swivel. So basic math, 8 plus 8, or 8 times 2, is going to give you 16. So congratulations, this is an articulated Orochi. It's an action figure. Then we have the legs of Orochi, which, well, I guess they might be the feet anyway, or the arms. They're going to swivel at the point where they connect to the body. Then furthermore on that, we are going to have joints at the tail. We're just going to have a couple there, and yeah. So that's pretty much going to be it for this guy. Now, something else to keep in mind is that this is a heavy front-loaded figure on pretty much any of the points that attach. So when we have the necks, you'll notice on mine, they're drooping and they're sort of disconnecting, if you will. Not really so much as if they're going to break, but they're creating a gap at the point of connection for all the necks. As well, for the tail, you see some gaps as well. It's not a mo-gap situation, but it's sort of separating just because of the weight over the years being displayed from what I would assume would be the previous owner. I got mine used. Something to keep in mind there. Now, let's go ahead and move on over to a size comparison, and this is going to be one of the few times I actually bring a ruler into play, this time a tape measure, to really emphasize how big this MFR is. Okay, you can see how big it is from head to the reasonable tip of the tail, how much shelf space this is going to command, and yeah, 2 feet. That's what you got to prepare for. And then to basically the tip of the neck, the highest point here, give or take, I show 10 inches. Let's go ahead and round it to a foot for your own safety. So if you're looking for clearance, oh boy. But then, of course, as I was taught by someone who did research on this, here's going to be one of the best ways so you can comprehend just how at least tall and bulky Orochi is going to be. Here's going to be a size comparison with some other figures you just might have in your collection, both comprehensively with some older similar stuff like Movie Monster Series and some more modern day stuff like Mondo vinyls and SH Monster Arts. So buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. First and foremost, for the figure in and of itself, it is actually impressive how well this figure held up over the years. Admittedly, yes, mine has some scrapes, and it is kind of, separating a little bit at some of the joints, but nevertheless, this is still great, and it is impressive to have it in hand. When I was at a particular Godzilla-related convention, or rather I should say festival, hint, hint, I did happen to see 3 of these that went for between $300 to $400. That's the next section. And I thought, wow, that is a lot of money. But seeing them in hand and handling one of them, I thought this is definitely one that I have to have. And I've been debating the purchase for quite a few years. So naturally, what I did, seeing the prices, I took out my phone and I checked Mandarake. That same day, I had one ordered and shipped to my door 5 days later for $200. Yes. So when you see the sticker shock of 30,000 yen, which yes, the price has gone up, as of today, June 30th, 2023, that's only $200. So when you have shipping that's maybe 10,000 yen, that doesn't really go up all that much. Yes, to everyone, prices are different, but when you see prices that are astronomical, just stop, do some searching around, check Zen Market, check Mandarake, and just see how much you can find something for on the aftermarket. And check your Japanese resources. Chances are you'll find a diamond in the rough. Hey collectors, that's going to wrap up the video today, and as always, thanks for watching, commenting, sharing, subbing, it all helps. I always enjoy responding to comments, so be sure to drop one down below and I will respond if I can. I do have supporters on Patreon as well, and each review gets an end card to show who is supporting each month, so here are the end cards. Camera batteries, SD cards, even hard drives. It's not possible without that support, so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Here's the final end card, so this way you can click subscribe, check out another video, or even check out the social media outlets. You know you want to. Before we end today, as in the description, there may be paid ad space, affiliate links, or product samples that were sent out in this video, so please check out the STR ad disclosure. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next video.